Now moving on to the use of energy for microscopic purposes, this would be called metabolism. Metabolism includes biochemical reactions in the body that use energy to build up or tear down substances. And the metabolic rate is the rate of energy usage in the body. To measure the metabolic rate, submerge a person. Pause here for measure the metabolic rate. Submerge a person in a tub of water. By the way, there are other ways to do this, but this is the most accurate way. And measure the rise in temperature of the water. Because the metabolic rate is related to the heat output of your body. The more heat you put out, that means the higher your metabolic rate, right? So remember, heat is our Q. So if I think about, I have this, say, tub of water, and then I put a person inside of that water, and I have a thermometer that measures the change in temperature for that. Now, I know that Q is equal to mc delta T. I have a certain mass of water, and I know the specific heat of water, so I measure the change in temperature, and that tells me what is the amount of heat that my body is putting out. And that amount of heat is related to the metabolic rate. The more heat that your body puts out, the higher the metabolic rate. I remember a few years ago I started lifting weights because I had some back issues, and I started lifting weights to help strengthen my back muscles and just sort of help strengthen my body in general. And I found that at night I was just really hot all the time. And I went from having, a blanket or two on top of me when I sleep at night to like nothing at all. And my wife, on the other hand, she's freezing, right? But I'm just burning up and I can't get any cooler. And that's the reason is because my metabolic rate had increased with increased muscle mass, because muscles will increase your metabolic rate. And my body just put out a lot more heat. When we talk about metabolic rate, we're going to talk about the BMR. That's the basal metabolic rate. That's the rate at which the body converts energy into thermal energy. So like your food energy into thermal energy while resting. This is basically, the energy required to live. Typically, your BMR is 65 calories per hour. So in one day, how many calories do you use? Well, 65 calories per hour. Remember back to chapter 0, this is a great way. You're really sort of doing unit conversions. I want to go from calories per hour to calories per day. I know that in one day there are 24 hours, so my hours cancel out. And then that gives me, let me show you a good way how to do this so you don't have to use a calculator, because you can't use a calculator on our test. Is to round these numbers. So I have 65, I would round that up to 70, and then I'm multiplying it times 24, I round that down to 20, and that gives me 1400, right? Because 7 times 2 is 14, and then I have these 2 extra zeros. So I look here on the multiple choice, and I see that 1600 is the only answer that's close to that. And in fact, if I do 65 times 24 in my calculator, I do get 1600 calories per day. All right. Younger people tend to have a higher BMR. This is because younger people are growing and their body just requires more energy to live. But then also tall, thin people tend to have higher BMRs. And the tall, thin people have a higher BMR because they have a higher surface area to volume ratio. As you know, here's a tall, thin person. That's not a very good picture, but they have a large surface area with a relatively small volume. And that just means that they radiate heat outward really quickly. You ever see on, where is it? Like on some of your devices, electrical devices will have these fins on them, these cooling fins. Those cooling fins are sort of like a tall, thin person, that they just radiate heat outward. The total metabolic rate is the total energy to run your body. Say run, for your body to operate. And that includes any activity that you engage in. So it includes the TMR, includes your BMR, plus the energy due to any activity. The BMR may require about 1,600 calories per day, as we saw previously, but the TMR can be a bit more than that. It can be up to, say, 2,500 calories per day. Up to 2,500 calories. But that depends on your activity level, right? If you're not very active, then you might just need about 1,800 calories or 19 or, under 2,000 calories. Notice that the BMR is the bulk of your calories. Uh, so while exercise is great for your body, to really manage weight or, to lose weight, that you have to cut your consumption of calories. I think exercise is great for your body, but if you're really losing weight, you need to recognize that this is the bulk of your calories. Now, there is good news that exercise will tend to increase your BMR, right? Like when I started lifting weights, my BMR actually went up because that was indicated just by my temperature. My body was just, I was hotter all the time because my BMR had increased. Ironically, I didn't lose weight during that time. Of course, I actually gained quite a lot of weight. I gained about 20 pounds because muscle mass just has more mass to it. It's more massive than other non-muscle mass.